Hello, everybody. This one's going to be short, but it's our Friday update on Saturday morning. Um, I haven't read all of them, but I went through a lot of the What Makes a Good Reader and, you know, spot on. I mean, it's like we know what we need to do when we really want to pay attention and get the most out of the reading. And it's easier said than done because, I mean, it's everything from creating the environment to having the right attitude. I mean, think about when you're tired, when you're angry, when you have 17 different things on your mind, how easy is it to read effectively, right? So, one of the skills of a good reader actually is going to be able to get their mind in the right spot to read, right? So, a lot going on, great posts, keep up the work. And, one of the things that I like about 1022 Online, us, is, and this is the fourth class I've taught of it, I'm always impressed by the discussions. The posts that you make, you're thoughtful, you're going into detail. Keep that up. Not only does it make the discussion richer, but you are writing a lot, right? And organized. So at the end of the semester, you may have written 3,000 words, not counting papers, right? Without even trying that hard in a sense, right? Or thinking about it. So when you're doing these posts, right, enjoy what other people are saying and looking at how in depth they go. If you see one that you're like, man, the ones you really like, what is it that you like about them? Is it because they shared something personal? Is it because you can tell they really thought about an idea? Those things that you like, right? Why not try to model that? Hey, they went into a lot of detail. I'm going to go into a lot of detail. If you read a post and say like you're nonplussed, right? You read and you go, wow, I didn't really get much out of it. I think they stayed on the surface, right? Well, that can also be a thought for yourself. Go back, look at your post. Are there places where you could have gone deeper, right? So the stuff you see that you like, see what's in it that you could also possibly do yourself. If there are parts that don't grab you, see how that might apply. So to wrap that part up, keep up the good work. Now you're going to move on to the researcher side, right? And what makes a good researcher. And then you're going to be posting your notes. Now, you already said what goes into good reading, right? So I know that you'll be really paying attention as you read everything from the introduction to the first story. One of the things your notes can absolutely and should include would be questions like wait a second, what's going on here? I don't quite understand this. It might be an idea that pops into your head. Hey, wait, this, whatever this is, right? If something goes, wow, that's really got me thinking about how important X is, whatever that is, make a note of that too. So in your notes, I'm not going to ask you what happened on page 27 and how heavy was the suitcase, right? Because that's silly. You know what I mean? That just, sometimes people do that as a super easy way to make sure that you've read it. But we're in college, we're in research, we're way deeper. So it's more like, what's the significance of what happened, or what do you think might have gone, caused this? I got ahead of myself. In your notes, think about big picture stuff, big ideas. Hey, they were offloading, major events. One of the reasons to write down the major events is so when we get done with the entire book and you want to go back and you're like, oh, where did that thing happen? You don't have to try to scan through the entire book. You can look for your notes and say, oh, this way for the gas, that's when this happened, right? A day at Hormats, that's where this happened. So consider it a way to keep track of where the ideas are in case you want to go back and find them. The other thing, another way you can use that is, say later on, we're on our fourth story, and somebody posts something really interesting, and that makes you think of something earlier. You could go back, look through your notes, not read the book again, and say, oh, you know what? In that first story, this happened and it's connected. So keeping notes is a way to keep the thoughts outside of the book, right? You put them in your notebook. Now you don't have to read the entire book again, the entire story again. You can find it. If anything ever really grabs you, like this was super powerful, definitely put the page number on, right? So you can go back and find out on page 27. That's the thing with the mother. I can't stop thinking about it. There's where it is. So when you're doing your notes, right? Main events, questions that come up, right? And I think that'll cover it, right? And you'll post and see what other people are grabbing. So there's a perspective video, but let me get ahead of myself. Right here, Hillary is a tutor, so she has certain expectations, right, of what, like, she's coming in each week, right? She's reading all the stuff that you're reading. And then there's certain things, for example, when you talk to Hillary, say you're having trouble with a particular area, it absolutely makes sense for her to say, hey, Steve, there's a student struggling with this, right? So I know what's going on. Now, she's not going to, if you, school-related stuff, of course, it makes sense that she would tell me as the teacher, hey, there's a couple people who are wondering about this, right? But you can read the tutoring agreement right there to see all of the requirements, but if you want to. Right? This perspective video, right, which you can see with I made that earlier with the shorter hair. I did, for those of you who haven't watched it or have, I just did the household income by race. Now, this screenshot is going to make more sense after you watch the video, but I just did it today, and you'll notice whites moved down even lower, and I'm just going to let that be there. Once you see the video, you'll understand at least what I think is going on there, right? Because it's very odd to start, oh, let me just put this back, right? How many rankings have you seen start at 2? Right? That is, to me, so weird. And then when you go to the list, of course, the list starts at 1. So one of the things, right, an active reader does is look for things that go out of the norm. Who in the heck? I'm going to give you a top, I'm going to give you a top 5 list. Number 2. Something weird's going on there, and watch this video to see what I think is going on. Okay. Checking my notes. Right on track. Okay. So this will be on perspectives. Watch that. What goes into a good researcher? Read the first chapter. Now you've read the introduction and the first story, really. And here's where I want you to put some information, what your thoughts are. Next week, I will give you the little bit into a deep dive in research, since now we've talked about the characteristics of a good researcher. And basically, on and off for the next 15 weeks, we'll be diving in and out of researching everything from super simple, quick Google search for why do they call it Canada, to much deeper things, right? In fact, there's 2 books on the Holocaust that have very different views on what it took in Nazi Germany for this to happen. And for example, I'll bring those 2 up, but that's at a later date. One last thing I'm going to add when it ties into perspective and the books. It's really interesting, right? Perspective is rarely the same between people, and the author, Tadeusz Borowski, when he talks about his time in the camp outside of, not what you're reading, but which isn't an autobiography, right? He experienced those things, but maybe not exactly as they showed up, right? He talks about how he wasn't a very good person in the camps. I've read other things, though, that say for the Poles, right, the people who were in the camps with them actually said he was a really good person in the camp, right? So for him, what he did to survive, he thinks himself as not a very good person. Yet for the people around him going through the same thing, they're saying actually, no, he was a good guy. So different perspective, right? I'm going to end this. You got plenty to do. I hope you're having a good weekend. And I was going to say enjoy the reading. Seems a little weird with Holocaust stories. So I'll rephrase it, right? I hope you appreciate, right, the readings this week. Have a good weekend.